But let's start here with something absolutely perfect. Perfectly Dark, that is. Let's
Oh!
talk about Perfect Dark
Yeah.
for the N64. Brennan, you played a lot of Perfect Dark. What makes it wonderful?
I was always a Perfect Dark guy over GoldenEye. I know everyone, there's kind of divisive whether you love GoldenEye or Perfect Dark. I was Perfect Dark probably because of the setting. I wasn't a James Bond fan as much as I was like sci-fi. So having this like crazy like Ghost in the Shell inspired Blade Runner-esque like sci-fi conspiracy stuff, it was a really competent shooter on the Nintendo 64 of all things.
Yeah, it was a very refined shooter compared to GoldenEye. GoldenEye's a lot of fun, but it's very, very rough around the edges. Perfect Dark, you can tell they kind of went through and gave it a second gloss, figured out what worked control-wise and level design-wise compared to what had happened before. It's a much less experimental game in many ways, and I think a lot more playable today. You guys, Vince, what do you think?
Well, actually, what I think is cool about it is that I think Perfect Dark is an example of when a studio gets their core, their base under them. You know, they've done all the development groundwork, right? And then they're like, okay, we know what works, we know what doesn't. Now that we have a confident core, we can kind of put in laptop miniguns and like and like the Farsight, which sees through and shoots through walls. I feel like it was that, yeah, totally, yeah. It's like a wall hack, but like in a gun. And I loved seeing that how they had this confidence in what existed already, and then they just started getting crazy off of it. I mean, and what I think is amazing too is that now today, Perfect Dark wouldn't have been made. It would have instead been GoldenEye 2. Like that's what it would have been today. They'd like, let's take the name and build on it. But they're like, no, let's take what we made and then like make original IPs out of it.
And they did a wonderful job with that. It was a great dorm game.
Also,
4 people in a room. Yeah.
It made perfect use of the expansion pack. One of the later games to use it, and it like used to the brim. It had multiplayer with 4 people plus up to 8 simulants.
Yeah.
All had their own AI you could program. You could have like evil sims, pacifist sims, and like the way you could have multiplayer maps on that and be able to choose your selection of items. You can choose your loadout, choose shields, choose your music playlist. It had just such a crazy amount of detail into it.
Yeah, it's a really kind of a crazy lost idea, the whole RAM card expansion. You imagine being able to like just buy something off the shelf
it's suicide now.
Yeah, plug it into the side of your Xbox and suddenly it's Xboxier. I mean, that would be. But it worked really well for games like this and in this situation. This also represents an interesting time in history. The last real moment, the Nintendo was the dominant force in console first-person shooters.
Yeah, that's right.
That's where you went for it.
Nope, it hasn't happened again.
It had great AI, it had great mission objectives that scaled to your difficulty. It also had counter-op, which I've never seen in another
That's right, I forgot
shooter.
about that.
It was a kind of a wonky mode where you have someone playing Joanna Dark, and then somebody playing a random goon in the level with like half their health.
Yeah.
And they would just try anything they could to stop you. And I remember playing with my friend. We were always playing the one where we had to protect the president in Air Force One. And so the moment he started, it was like an escort mission gone wrong, where I had to save the president. He would just be like launching like grenades and like mines into his face, trying to blow him up. And it's like, how do you stop someone from doing that?
It's a wonderful game with a wonderful legacy. It is, it's an anachronism now. The way games controlled then is very different than what we expect now. Obviously, the way that level design has advanced or changed makes going back to it something you have to do with an self-awareness. But it's still a fun game.
It's also the end of right near the end of that golden era of the Rare Nintendo marriage, because it was 2002, just a short time later. This was one of the last games before Nintendo sold Rare to Microsoft.